My brother's actions threatened everything our family built. When I confronted him, he denied everything and turned against me. I had no choice but to fire him for the sake of our family's survival, even if it meant breaking my own heart. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to let go my own brother. I mean, who would ever have thought that sort of choice would fall on their lap? But life, with all its volatility, doesn't ask if you're ready. It just pushes the storm towards you, and you either figure out how to swim or you drown. I believed my family was invincible when I was a child. We were not rich by any means, but we had something greater: each other. My parents were working class, salt-of-the-earth people who opened up their own small business, a small home renovation company. My brother and I watched our dad hammer nails into beams and our mom mess with ledgers until the early morning hours. They put everything they had into that project, hoping one day it would be our future. I was a little older than my brother, so I tended to be usually the responsible one. I never asked to be called that, but it just sort of followed me around through the years. My brother was, well, he was different, charismatic, off the cuff, witty, the kind of guy everyone wanted to hang out with. He had that spark that filled a room and that smile that could sell pretty much anything. But with so much charm came a restlessness of sorts. Rules did not adhere to him. Deadlines were merely suggestions. And structure? That was something he always seemed to bend until it broke. When our parents retired, they passed on the baton to the two of us. It wasn't surprising. We'd already been in the business for decades already. I was in charge of operations and finances, balancing the books, keeping projects on track, and not getting behind. My brother, naturally, was the face man or representative of the company. He was in charge of sales, customer relations, and schmoozing. And it worked for a while. Yes, it did. Our strengths complemented each other. I serviced the machine and he brought in the clients. But weaknesses emerged after the first year. At first, there were small things: missed appointments, outstanding bills not sent, clients complaining about promises made and not kept. I bailed him out. I always had. When he failed to take calls, I checked in. When he made appointments in duplicate, I glossed over it. I told myself it was a phase, that he'd adjust, that he was adjusting to the extra workload. But it wasn't a phase. The mistakes became routine and costly. I discovered he was offering discounts to friends behind my back, even doing small things for free as favors. He started tapping into the business account for himself. Nothing huge initially, but it added up. Here a few $100, there 1,000. When I asked him about it, he'd laugh it off. Come on, man, it's not a big deal, I'll pay it back. But he never did. And the more I pushed, the more his defenses became hardened. I still remember the time when I found out he'd accepted a deposit on a large renovation project and never scheduled the work. The customer was furious. Rightly so. They paid him a 5-figure sum, and after weeks of following up with him, they finally called me. When I brought it to his attention, he brushed it off like it was some kind of filing error. It fell through the cracks, he said to me. But that was not it. He had used the money to pay off some personal debt. Credit cards, I was guessing. He looked at me directly and told me, I was going to take care of it before you even knew anything about it. That was the point where something changed in me. I wasn't just covering for a brother anymore. I was enabling someone who was dismantling piece by piece all that our parents built, all that I had worked for, it all that we were supposed to protect together. I lay awake that night. My mind was in circles thinking the same thing. How far was I willing to go to protect the business? And what would it cost me? I thought of our parents. Years they invested building this from ground zero. I thought of our employees, good, hard-working people who were depending on us to put food on the table. And I thought of our clients, families who placed their trust in us with their homes. But most of all, I thought of my brother, the little kid I shared a bedroom with, the man who walked me down the aisle on my wedding day, the uncle my children adored. How do you separate the man from the memories? How do you make a line between responsibility and love? I talked to him once more. I sat him down and put it all on the table. The jobs that were skipped, the financial catastrophe, the blow to his reputation. I told him I couldn't keep bailing him out anymore, that unless he got serious, really serious about fixing it, we were going to lose everything. He laughed. Not mean-spiritedly, but like I was overacting. "You're always so stiff," he said. "Relax. We'll bounce back. We always do." But we weren't bouncing back. We were sinking. He was angry when I said I was considering stepping in and doing his job. Not just angry, betrayed. He accused me of seeking to oust him, of being envious of the fact that people preferred him. That stung more than I had anticipated. It was like a gut punch, hearing that from a man I'd been defending for so long. I realized then that we weren't merely confronting a business emergency. We were confronting a profound crack in who we'd grown to be. The final blow struck later that 2 weeks. I learned he'd been using company equipment for side work done off the books, pocketing the funds and using our tools and manpower without charging anything more. That wasn't careless. That was stealing. From the business. From me. My family. I knew I had no other option, and it ripped me apart. I called a meeting, the two of us by ourselves, my hands shaking while I laid it all out. All the bills, all the stolen dollars, all the complaints. He didn't even attempt to deny it. He just sat there, silent. His expression was unreadable, between anger and shame. "I won't let this happen," I said to him. My voice cracked, but I went on. You're my brother, and I love you. But if this continues, we lose everything. I have to let you go." The silence that followed was a vacuum. He stood up, glared at me with burning eyes, and told me, "You'll regret this." And he walked off. And so, the responsibility for that decision rested with me. I sat in my chair long after he was gone, gazing out at the empty chair across from me, wishing things were different. Wishing that I could reverse time to the days when we were two kids helping Dad take plywood off the truck. In the weeks that followed, things were tense. Word got around fast. Our employees, our clients, even acquaintances and relatives. Everyone had an opinion. Some were in my favor. Some thought I'd done him wrong. My parents were hurt. They didn't speak the words, but I could sense it on their faces. Disappointment, sadness, maybe even guilt. But slowly, the business began to heal. Clients returned. Work got finished on time. We began repairing our reputation, contract by contract. It wasn't simple. I couldn't help but experience a pang every time I looked at the empty desk in the corner office. With every family photograph I passed, I questioned whether I made the correct choice. But then, I considered the clients we might have lost. The workers whose paychecks depended on our stability. The tradition our parents entrusted to us to stop. And I knew, even though it stung, I did what I had to do. I haven't spoken with my brother in nearly a year. We've exchanged a couple of chilly emails about legal updates, but nothing personal. I think about him every day. I wonder if he's okay, if he hates me, if he ever understood why I did what I did. Maybe someday we'll talk again. Maybe we won't. But this is what I've learned. Love is not always a yes. Love is sometimes being strong, not to hurt somebody, but to preserve all that's important, even if it means becoming the bad guy in their story, even if it shatters your heart. I had to give up my own brother for the benefit of our family, and I'll never recover. Time moved more slowly after that, more weighed down. Each day that I went into the office, I felt a bittersweet mix of pride and sadness. Pride that at last the business was stabilizing. Bills were being paid on time, clients were happy, and our office morale was starting to recover. Gloom because all success felt imperfect. It's odd, you know? You work so hard to repair the fractures in something, but even when it's whole, you can still feel where the fractures used to be. There were times, late at night, when I'd lie on my back and go through every choice in my mind. Did I move too quickly? Should I have tried harder to get through to him? Should I have given him another opportunity? Guilt is a cruel sense of humor like that. It does not care if you did the right thing. It slithers in, wraps itself around your heart, and makes you question everything. I recalled this once when we spoke when we were young. Must have been in our 20s. We were lying in the bed of Dad's old truck again after a sweltering day of loading drywall. The sun was setting, and we were both exhausted. Sweat and dust caked on our shirts. He gazed at me and said, One day, this will belong to us, to you and me. We'll go farther than Mom and Dad ever dreamed. I nodded, smiling, committing to that future with every bit of my heart. But we'd changed. I'd learned to carry the weight of responsibility. He'd learned to run from it. Some friends phased out after it all went down. They didn't say it, but I knew they were more his friends than mine. One actually called me selfish, of putting business ahead of blood. That stung. It had me questioning what kind of person I was. Had I lost my heart? Had I let the stress of keeping it running make me cold? But then I'd walk into the break room and see our foreman laughing with the crew again. I'd finally see the project manager breathing without running around trying to suppress last-minute emergencies. I'd have clients emailing me expressing their appreciation for the painless experience. And I'd remember what it was like in the past. The disruption, the destruction, the late nights wondering if we'd even pay our employees. You see, running a business is not all about profit margins and project schedules. It's about people, trust, reputation, the years-old things in the single moment of destruction. I couldn't let all of that come apart because I didn't want to hurt my brother's feelings. That's the cruel irony. I hurt him deeply in trying to protect something that I thought we both loved. There were some moments of sadness also that were not expected. I didn't expect to mourn someone who was alive, but that's what it was like. Right on. I'd hear a song we used to play on road trips, or hear a photo from a company picnic, and feel that sting, the one that's like it's saying to you, you lost something you'll never really get back again. And then there was the time I ran into him again. It was at a cousin's wedding, about a year after it all went down. I did not know if he would arrive. The whole family was vibrating with strained silence, deciding whether to prepare for war or pray for peace. I caught sight of him in the courtyard talking to some distant relatives, holding a drink and sporting that same careless smile. For a moment, everything seemed to be the same. And then, we locked eyes. He didn't look away, and neither did I. We simply stood there, before a crowd of suits and smiles, locked in some kind of silent reckoning. I nodded, not big, not dramatic, just a small nod. He winced, and then nodded back. That was all. No words, no apology, no battle. But somehow, everything. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't help but think of the moment, that quiet, wordless peace. It didn't erase the past. It didn't glue the broken pieces together. But maybe alone, it was a step in another direction. Not the same relationship we used to have, but maybe something else. Something real. Because this is what I've learned. Sometimes, the hardest thing you'll ever have to do is hold someone accountable, especially the one you love. But accountability is not cruelty. It is not revenge. It is something I'm doing as an act of care, of hope, of faith that the human being you're standing in front of is better than he knows how to be. I don't know if my brother gets it. Maybe he still thinks I betrayed him. Maybe he will always. But I know this too. If I hadn't done what I did, we would have lost everything. Not just the company, our employees, our clients, our reputation, and maybe even our families. It's been over 2 years at this point since I let him go. The company is thriving. We've grown, added new services, brought on new employees, established satellite towns. I've started mentoring up-and-coming business people, trying to pass on the things I had to learn the hard way. Things about management, about boundaries, about love that values truth over convenience. And my brother? He's started something himself, I hear. Smaller in scope, more independent. Some said he's doing well, and I hope that is true. I really do. Because despite everything, I still wish him to be successful. I still wish him to find peace, to learn, to become the man that I always thought he could be. We still haven't talked, but I'm hopeful. Hopeful that one day, when the pain has dissipated and the wounds have healed into scars, we'll sit down, over coffee, maybe, or a beer, and we'll speak, really speak, Not about the firm or the consequences, but about us. About who we once were. About who we are now. And who we still could be. Until then, I carry the weight of that decision. Not out of remorse, but out of respect. Because being right isn't always right. Sometimes it breaks your heart. But in the breaking, you learn who you are. I had to release my own brother for the sake of our family. And while it cost me everything, I'd do it again. Because love, real love, means doing the right thing, even if it is painful.